And just looking at facts and pushing because everyone does this, it's like we continue
Good morning, Station City Person, Chief and Owners, and Allocation. Good morning, everyone. Camille China, Administrator and Hire, and the Special Impact Statement on the Trauma Center.
Commissioner Ryan, on the audio for the feed, at least coming into my computer, it looks like everybody else, we can't hear anything that's being said.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. I'm sure Kevin approved that hold out to me. Why don't we take a little pause to take a look at it? Okay? All right.
morning. I'm Camille Plummer. I just come on Vegetarian Hire. I'm a social impact consultant and the founder of Camille Plummer Consulting. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
My name is Paulina, Director of Levy.
One of the methods I'm on the speaker calling and stuff to put in here.
Good morning. And typical currently in term clinical learning and community health. Dia sangat melakukan saya like dalam orang occupation program
Good morning. My name is Katrina Peterson. I usually have pronouns and staff here at Levy. Good morning. I'm Mary Johnson here. She, her pronouns. Lovely. She, her pronouns, and I'm a part of the community council. I'm Leah Levan. I use she, her pronouns, and also part of the community council. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tracy Roxley, and pronouns are she, her, and I'm for the allocation today.
Good morning. Samson is former given pronouns and the senior manager of the domestic violence campus, and I'm part of the community. And how both are virtual, starting with children networks and
I'm giving feedback using written markers.
they can't miss again. No time. We can learn. Now it's more of people can't learn. Yeah, I'm looking. Try it again. Can you hear me now? It's still nothing before. 1 second. Yeah. I'm trying to test me. Can you hear me? There's a new phone that came up with 7 minutes now. I think you need it's even to be good. Like there's a university batch of tons. Probably something.
Testing, can you hear my voice?
Yeah. Probably do another practice.
you, Tanisha. All right. So we would like to share our deck. Is it coming up? For the participants that are on our Zoom call, are they able to see? Okay. Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page as we walk through. And as Camille alluded to, spoiler alert, there's a... Do you see it on your...
It's not on the screen yet.
Let me see. Let me go back to Zoom. Sorry, it was on me, guys. All right. So we have a lot of data that we want to walk you through today. The way that we structure this is first, I'm going to walk you through some demographic characteristics of the individuals that we engage through our different processes. Following that, we're going to walk through each of the 3 programmatic areas. We're going to start with 3 at a time. We're going to pause, like Camille said, take a moment, ask any questions that you may have. Then we'll regroup, work through the other 3 sections as well. Take another moment to pause for about 5 minutes, have a Q&A, and then we'll walk through the final, which is really the reflections that we were able to gather from the communities about this process, as well as their vision that they have for what the next future of Portland should look like. So as we're working through this data, please, as we mentioned before, there is so much that's here, so rich. Through this experience, we were able to engage about 760 community members and service providers over across the city of Portland. And we were able to gather these insights over a 3-month period. We started in about December of last year and concluded our last focus group in March of this year. So with that, we conducted surveys with community members and was able to gather insights from about 509 respondents. This survey was transcribed into 6 different languages. And our community engagement liaisons, the CELs, they were able to verbally translate the survey into more than 20 languages for individuals as well. We also conducted a provider survey as well. This was an opportunity for us to hear from individuals who lead organizations, as well as those that work on the front line of those organizations. So we were able to use a survey that's only in English to get about 153 respondents from those participants as well. We also value and understand that it's really important to sit in communities and have conversations with them. So we were able to conduct about 10 focus groups. Some were virtual, some were in person, and we were able to engage more than 80 youth and their family members in that process as well. And we wanted to make sure that we cross-reference those insights that we were getting from in-depth interviews that we conducted with service providers of different culturally responsive organizations that really work with the different focal populations that we wanted to really hear from. On our next slide here are some key demographic characteristics of those individuals who completed just a survey. We were able to engage about a quarter of individuals who identify as Black and African American, as well as about a quarter, a little bit over a quarter that identify as Asian, and just under a quarter of those identify as white as well. And you'll see the other breakdown for those other characteristics that are listed there as well, with smaller populations that was in that group who took the survey. In terms of the different populations, and on this slide, we wanted to show the different priority populations that are embedded in the work that you're doing. So we tried to make sure that we were capturing individuals that identify as immigrant or refugee families. We wanted to know how many people were we talking to that identify as being a person that represents an LGBTQIA identity, as well as those who are probably unhoused or those who are maybe experiencing times without enough food. And so what we wanted to do is make sure that as we're digging into the community insights, that we're able to segment the data to see what are some key characteristics that are really important for those populations. And you'll see on the slides to come where we call attention to some significant differences that may lie out in the data that's before you. In looking at the household income from community respondents, we noticed that less than 10% of the community members reside in households that earned about $100K or more per year. whereas the majority of the families or the respondents that we engaged were in earning households that earned less than $50K per year, as you can see by the first two bars on that graph. Now, just turning the page here and thinking about the providers and who they are and who did we engage through the survey, about half of those participants were identified as white, and about a quarter identified as Black, and about 18% identified as Hispanic or Latinx, with smaller percentages from those representing Asian, American Indian, as well as Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, and about 1% was Middle Eastern and North African. And just to juxtapose the income from those providers in comparison to what we just saw on the previous slides about the household incomes for community members, we see that about almost a third of the population of providers who completed the survey earn about $100K or more per year, whereas just about a quarter of those may earn about 50 or less, 50K or less per year. And we engaged individuals across the city in 10 different focus groups. Some of these were held in person, others were held virtually as well. And the numbers that are represented in this table are the number of individuals who participated in that specific focus group. And we just want to acknowledge that individuals have identities that are not just specific to that focus group that they showed up in, but for instance, you may have someone who is a houseless individual who might also identify as LGBTQIA, who might also be Black. So they have multiple identities, but we wanted them to show up in a group that they felt most comfortable being in community with when they have that. So I don't want you to read those numbers and just think that we only engage, 12 of these people, but they lie across a lot of different categories when you're looking at that data. And finally, in terms of those in-depth interviews, we were able to have conversations with about 11 individuals who operate community-based organizations that work specifically with different populations here. So, for instance, wanting to talk to individuals who operate organizations that support LGBTQIA youth, those who works in an early learning space, and those across the city there. So we're going to jump into our first programming area. And what we did in these sections was combine the survey data with the qualitative insights that we're getting from those conversations. So you will see in some places some juxtaposition between what you're seeing in a survey and what you're seeing in community. But I just want you to take that with you as you're reviewing the survey or reviewing the results in a section. So the first one touches on early childhood. And in the survey with community members and providers, we asked them, what are some programs that we need in our community for families with children 5 and younger? And so we asked them to categorize each of those programs as, do we need a lot more? Do we need a little more? Do we have enough? Or do we need less of these programs in our community? And so here are the 5 programs that we asked in the survey. We wanted to know, do we need more programs to help parents and caregivers learn about their children's behavior and development, such as managing some difficult behaviors that youth may be experiencing or little ones may be experiencing? Do we need more programs to help them and the children learn how to identify and express their feelings, or even support families that have those with disabilities? Or do we need programs to help pay for and support families in paying for childcare, or even teenage parents with resources like childcare and parenting support? And looking at the responses from both community members and providers, and it's probably is no surprise to any of us in this room that one of the top programs that stood out is that a lot of the families would like support with paying for childcare. And it's probably something that we continuously hear in our communities as well, and this is really reflected in the data that we see here. Just to orient you to this graph, the blue bar represent those that said we either need a little more or a lot more. We put them together to represent the more category. For those who said we need enough, their reflections are shown here in the graph in the lighter orange color. The rust color is for those who says we need less. And for those that just said, I don't know, are represented in the gray as well. All of these programs, people felt like about 80% or more felt like we need more of these programs in our communities. So it's really hard to disentangle whether one was even more important than the other. These are really very important programs for all family members across the city. But we wanted to dig a little bit deeper. We wanted to see amongst the community members, are there any significant trends that are standing out for them? And so when looking at the first program around, do we need more programs to help support youth or children with their behavior and behavioral development, including helping parents understand how to manage some difficult behaviors? We saw that, only about 44% of Hispanic or Latinx respondents prioritize this as an area where they need more support, whereas all the other races, about 60% or more of those other races identified that this was a significant area of need for them. And about 100% of the teenage parents also indicated that this is an area where they need some support. In addition, when looking at programs around how to support children in learning how to identify as well as express their feelings, we noticed that there was also some significant differences amongst the different racial and ethnic groups, whereas Hispanic and Latinx, as well as American Indian and Black and Asian respondents, were more likely to express that they need more programs like this in their community compared to some of our white respondents there as well. In thinking about the other three program areas, especially around those with wanting to have more programs to help support caregivers with their children who may be experiencing different levels of inability or disabilities, we noticed that 93% of the respondents who was caring for someone with a disability, as well as 95% of respondents who was caring for a child with a disability, indicated that they really needed a lot more programs in their community to support them. When it comes to paying for child care, 92% of the families who have children that are 5 or younger indicated that they need a lot more programs in their community to help support them. And when you're thinking about teen parents and the resources that they need to help support them in terms of child care and parenting support, we noticed as well that Black respondents were significantly more likely than white respondents to indicate that there's a need for these programs in their community to support teen parents as well. As we had those conversations in a community, we also noticed that not only was having affordable child care important, but family members also needed to have a culturally responsive, high quality, and trustworthy child care providers that they could send their children to. This came out in a lot of different quotes and conversations with parents across the city. And some of the quotes that we have here is where a parent talks about, they feel the least supported in the education system. Our kids receive instruction and the teachers receive information and training, but parents are alone and unsupported. So how can we get more support for parents and helping them support their children because they are their first teachers? And then also others indicated how they felt unsafe about or unsure if they wanted to send their kiddos to different environments because they will see reports in the news, they'll see reports either locally or nationally about children getting hurt and abused in those environments. And so they really called for wanting to have more representatives, more child care providers that reflect their cultural identity because they felt like there would be a level of a trust that they could build there. So just looking at all of that data together, we set out some recommendations based off of what we were seeing. And one of the obvious ones is there needs to be additional families, financial assistance for families as they need assistance with paying for child care. And of course, as we saw, there needs to be more culturally responsive child care, but also flexible. And talking to some of the teen parents and recognizing that, or even single parent households that work shifts that are outside your typical 9 to 5, that there is not always access to child care, especially in those places where they probably don't have parents or family members that they could help share and shoulder that responsibility with. So they're looking for a quality outlet to be able to take their children to so that they could become a working family and stay in the workforce as well. Also, the need to have more programs to support neurodiverse children and being able to identify that treat them and test them for different disabilities early is really important. And that ranges from physical disabilities as well as intellectual disabilities as well, and being able to get access to occupational therapy, speech therapy, and knowing about those programs, and even knowing that you need to probably consider getting tested or having your youth get tested for that as well is really important. And of course, they wanted more programs to really support their youth and being able to express those big emotions, express those big feelings, identify that, and for parents to be supportive and understanding how to create and foster an environment that would support me and supporting my youth with being able to express themselves was really important. Our second program area really centers around mentorship and the role that adult role models could play in supporting youth and children and families in the community. And again, that survey question that we wanted to know from them this time, we wanted them to select your top 3. What are your top 3 choices in terms of the best role, the best ways that adult role models can support youth and families in your community? And thinking about adult role models, somebody that's outside of your family. So there were 6 programs that we had listed here, and we asked for them to, select and rank your top 3. Some of those were programs that help youth prevent them from joining gangs, support their leadership skills, support youth in recognizing, identifying, and affirming their cultural, racial, gender, and sexual identity, as well as programs that help youth with transitioning from high school and college into the career space as well. So we noticed when we received that survey data back, that when we compared community to providers' perspectives, that we saw some differences in the data. And so the orange color bars here are your community respondents, and the dark blue is from our providers. So it looked like they both agreed that increasing connections and reducing isolation amongst youth was something that stood out as a top priority for both community members as well as providers. But community members felt that their second and third choice was really around helping the youth attain leadership skills, as well as helping youth with preparing for college and careers post-high school. Whereas providers felt like the top priorities were around supporting youth's identity and supporting youth that are involved in violence. So just a little bit of a change in perspective, where providers are looking at this more of an intervention level, and your community members are looking at this from more of a prevention level. What can we do now to support our youth so that's not the trajectory that they are on?
So the only one where the community had a very different perspective than the providers was in preparing youth for trades in college and career.
Yes, when preparing youth for, I'm sorry, say that again?
Yeah, it's the only one where the orange is greater than the providers. What's that?
Youth that violence.
Oh, there too, sorry. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 2 of them.
Yes.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify that so I could be told there was 2.
Yes, yes.
But I think that's really a good clarifying moment to see those 2. Okay.
Yes, it is. It is. Those were areas where providers ranked those pretty low, whereas community members said that that was an important need for their community. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So when we look a little bit deeper underneath the hood, and we did some cross-sectional analysis to understand who in the community is saying what. So when we looked at for programs that support youth with getting connected to each other for positive development and to help them reduce feelings of isolation, we noticed that immigrant and refugee respondents, as well as parents that are caring for children ages 5 and younger, as well as parents that are caring for a child with a disability, those groups were significantly more likely than other groups to identify this as a priority and that they really need services to help them and their youth reduce feelings of isolation. When it comes to supporting youth, their cultural, their racial, their gender, and sexual identity and affirming those identities, we noticed that respondents who identify as LGBTQIA, as well as youth who were 18 years and younger, were significantly more likely to place this as their priority area. As well as we noticed that there were additional racial and ethnic groups such as Middle Eastern, Northern African, Asian, and Native Hawaiians who were significantly more likely to indicate that this is something that they need for their community. When it comes to supporting youth as they transition from college and careers, we noticed that This was a top priority for youth. 67% of youth indicated that preparing and planning for college was important to them. This was their top rated program in this area. So they want this. And usually we hear this from adults in their community, but now we're hearing this from the youth in the community as well. Some of the highlights that came from our conversation with focus group discussants is that we noticed that, especially with Spanish-speaking families, that they really highlighted the need to be in spaces that really preserve their cultural and linguistic identities, and that they recognize that programs ranging from programs in school to after-school programs to mentorship programs, that they wanted to be able to have spaces that help reflect their cultural identity, so to help preserve it. And as one parent says, it becomes a fight for preservation. Whereas they send their child to school, they realize that they're not speaking Spanish in school, and then they stop speaking it at home. And that's something that they want, a value that they want them to continue to have. And then others felt that, we need everything to be culturally specific, because otherwise our kids become a little bit confused about their identity. And so making sure that we're having spaces that affirm their identity in various ways of expressing their identities. When it comes to preventing youth from joining gangs, we noticed that youth were significantly less likely than other groups to indicate that this was a priority area. Only 17% of the youth felt like this was something that's really important to them. And as we noticed on the previous slide, that they were really concerned about that transitioning from high school to careers. And when it comes to supporting the healing of youth and children and those that have been involved in violence directly or touched by that indirectly or even harmed by violence, we noticed that this was very important for residents who reside in North Portland area as well, and that they indicated that this was a significant area that they wanted to concentrate on as well. And when it comes to helping youth develop those leadership skills, this was an area where youth were significantly less likely to indicate this as a priority area for them as well. But respondents who have a college degree, as well as those the respondents that had a college degree, were more likely than those without or those with a high school diploma to indicate that this was an area that they wanted to support their youth in. So we noticed that, youth need peer and adult role models to really support them in navigating the transitions that they experience in life. They not only want that support to be culturally responsive, but they want those individuals and those mentors that come into their life to reflect their identities in the ways that they could express themselves, because it provides a more empowering relationship that's there, as opposed to a relationship that's reaching them, based off of empathy. They also recognize that they want these mentors and these adult role models to be flexible, being able to reach them at multiple times throughout the week or even on the weekends. And also to be available at their naturally forming spaces that where they currently have communities, so whether that's in school or at different community centers and things like that, and to support them with developing some life skills. So thinking about financial resources, thinking about budgeting, getting them prepared for the things that they're going to have to do in their early adult years was really important, and something that youth as well as parents wanted to see that would happen in that space as well. So here's a reflection from one of our parents that we spoke to, and they wanted to recognize that mentors shouldn't give up or stop services too soon, or start when a kid is in their senior year. They should start from the beginning and stay right until the end, following up with the students every week and or every month. That way students can see, okay, this person really cares about me and my progress. And they reflect on back when they were in New Zealand, that they had a type of program that was set up where the goal was for every child to have a mentor that stays with them until the kid graduated, which was an important model that they wanted to bring and see here reflected in their communities as well. We also noticed that having and sharing a similar lived experience and cultural identity is super important. We see this reflected not only in youth, but parents also acknowledge this, as well as providers acknowledge the power that could happen when you have someone in your life that looks like you, that's experiencing the things that you're experiencing, that it's easier to have some of those conversations, because you probably don't even have to say certain things because they relate to you, because they have that shared experience. And that was really important. And we see that across a variety of stakeholders that we have those conversations with. We also noticed that when we're engaging youth, and they really reflected on, and this came up a lot with the youth who identify as immigrant and refugee families, as well as those who belong to families where English is a second language, is that they tend to have to take on a more of an adult role in their family. Now they're not only there to help themselves navigate through school, but they're having to support their parents and grandparents and being a translator when they show up for medical appointments. They also are having to look up resources to help their parents get different resources that they need, whether it's going through alcohol recovery or whatever that may be. And we noticed that they are taking on that role at a rate where they wasn't expecting. They really want some mentorship and guidance and helping them with that as well. And as a youth mentioned that, there are a lot of immigrant, refugee, or ESL students that go to school late or couldn't be at school at all. They had to take care of their little siblings or take them to school first. And many teachers saw them as kids who didn't want to be at school. But really, they just had to take care of their family and work and provide for them. So you see the disconnect about how youth are seeing themselves in a role that they have to play in the community. And we see how they feel like they're being perceived by the adults in their lives, such as their teachers, of like, oh, but they're not taking it serious, or they don't really care. They're looking at absentee rates, and they're not really looking underneath the hood about what is it that they're having to do and the big role that they're having to play, and how can we better support these youth as they take on that new identity for themselves. So when taking that all in together and looking at the survey findings as well as those conversations that we're having in communities, some clear recommendations stand out. They want to see support for the sustainability of programs. We want to see programs that are not just going to be here for this year, not just going to be available for my oldest child, but something that I can rely on so that in a couple of years, my other child is going through the program, I know where I could go and send them to get resources, and I know that those things are going to be available for them. They also call for the need to have professional mentors. They recognize that when individuals are volunteering at these organizations, that maybe they don't approach it with the same type of commitment as they would if it was someone who was hired in this role to be their mentor. And they're really calling for the need to have more professional mentors that are there to not only help them professionally, academically, but socially as well, as something that they really wanted to see. And they wanted to have mentorship for not only the youth, but also for the parents. Parents are interested in seeking additional resources. They would like some financial assistance, some financial literacy, and other life skills to help them as they're navigating and raising children and navigating the different life transitions as well. Some things that would be helpful is to increase accessibility as well as awareness of these programs, recognizing that there's probably a lot of programs that exist, but people are not really connected to those programs for whatever reasons. Maybe they don't know about it. Maybe it's not the community-based organization that they naturally gravitate to. So just thinking about having a broader reach for individuals and increasing awareness of those programs. And also supporting youth and getting mental health support, especially those who may be experiencing the effects of violence in their community, grief, or other types of loss as well. And making sure that those individuals reflect their cultural identity is really important for them. My next area that I want to take you through before we turn to our Q&A is after-school programs. And you'll probably see some additional similar themes, especially around mental health support and the types of programs that they want to see. But we asked survey participants, and that's community members and service providers alike, to rate their top 3 priority areas for after-school programs for youth. And this ranged from looking at programs that help support youth with tutoring and homework, programs that affirm gender identity and sexual orientations, help youth to handle conflicts without violence, as well as recreational sports and STEM programs, and also programs that help youth with accessing and understanding paid internships and work experiences, as well as activities that can help, with managing stress, but also provide assistance for those who may be experiencing disabilities. And just looking at the community respondents here, on this graph, we don't have the providers. We just wanted you to focus in on what the community members are saying. What are their 3 most important things that they need for children and teenagers when they are not in school? And top of that list are those programs that offer arts, sport, recreation, as well as STEM. And they also want to see more tutoring and homework support, as well as access to paid internships and work experience for their older youth as well. When they had to rank those programs against each other, we noticed that some of the least or the lower ranking programs for those around affirming gender and sexual identity, as well as programs to help identify and manage stress and develop relationships. So in comparison to those other programs, those were the lower ranking or lower priorities. So when it comes to tutoring and support, we noticed that Black as well as Asian respondents were significantly more likely than white respondents to express wanting to have these programs in their community to help support their youth. In terms of programs that help affirm their gender identity and sexual orientation, LGBTQIA respondents were significantly more likely than other groups to indicate that this was a program area that they would like more support in. And we also heard those reflections in community as well, as we learned that there was funding that's been cut for different GSAs and QSA associations that were used to exist in their school that's no longer there. And we also noticed that amongst the program area of, handling conflict without violence, respondents that had children that were 5 and younger and respondents who experienced houselessness or those without enough food were significantly more likely than individuals with children between the ages of 6 and 18 to identify this as a programmatic area for them. When it comes to accessing programs and increasing that access, we noticed that survey respondents who earn more than $100K annually and respondents with a college degree were significantly more likely to indicate that this was an important area. And we also noticed that 67% of youth who completed the survey, as well as 60% of caregivers with children that are connected to foster care, they wanted to see more programs that provide internships and experiences for those youth. And when it comes to learning to identify and manage stress, we noticed that respondents experiencing houselessness or those without enough food or caring for someone with a disability were significantly more likely than others to indicate that they wanted more programs to help them manage their stress and develop relationships. And when it comes to providing activities and support for children and families that have children with intellectual development and physical disabilities, we noticed that those families that hold those identities were more likely to indicate that they wanted to see more programs in their area, and that was important for them. And in fact, this was a top programming area for families and children with disabilities. They really wanted to see more programs exist for them. And just reflecting on some of the comments that we heard in community, we noticed that children and youth with disabilities and special health needs are, they're not effectively being served in the school and after school settings. There's not programs that really cater to their diverse needs or are providing enough space and welcoming the needs that they have in those environments. And we also noticed that families want affordable opportunities for their youth to really engage in some meaningful experiences when they are not in school. They want support with, providing tutoring support and academic support as well, but they also want support in terms of leadership skills and lifting up those other qualities of individuals as well. And they wanted those programs to be affordable and highly accessible for them in their program as well. And so some key recommendations that came out is that they want consistent, they want affordable, and they want sustainable programs that are going to continue to be there for them. Not only do they want programs that are focused on the academic, but also enrichment experiences as well. So those that could be for recreational purposes, but those that tapped into the special interests that youth might have around different arts and creativity. They wanted to see a diverse set of programs there, but also making sure that you provide space for those who are neurodivergent, those who have different intellectual and physical and developmental disabilities as well. It's really important for them. And of course, as we saw in some key quotes, Preserving the cultural identity of individuals is important. Making sure that they have groups that really reflect their cultural identity, that are responsive to their needs as well is important. And also providing more support for individuals who identify as LGBTQIA so there could be more associations that they see within their school or after school programs to help support them and affirm their identity as well. So we could take a beat for a second. That was a lot of information. I'm going to turn it over to Camille, who will guide us through about 5 minutes for Q&A.
So, as Dr. Woodson mentioned, that was a lot of dense information in a very little amount of time. I wish we had more time to dedicate to really unpacking this nuanced data. We have some prompts for you to think about. I want to prioritize clarifying questions in this moment because we are in a moment where we're helping you decide funding priorities. So it's important that you get your questions answered before sharing any commentary about the findings. So some prompts for you. What questions have we created for you about the program areas that we have shared the data for? What findings surprised you and why? Do you need any clarifying information about any of the particular findings? And are there any findings that are giving you heartburn, and why?
Yes. I have a specific question regarding, interestingly, the East Portland finding, because it, according to the data, is dealing with a lot of violence right now. So I'm curious if we have any information on why they placed that lower.
We didn't gather that from our focus groups. We didn't ask those questions specifically about why they chose that as a lower, but I could revisit the data to see if there's any other nuances that we could see when we look specifically at East Portland. But in our conversations, we were not able to contextualize that point and gather additional insights for that.
Gotcha. And then the second one is regarding the 50%. So that's a priority. So was that like a ranked thing? Like 50% chose that, and then, so it wasn't like 50% versus like 50% basically.
So when they rank those areas, they are given a set of about 6 or 7 programs.
Gotcha.
They have to identify their top 3. And so when you look specifically amongst individuals who identify as probably East Portland residents, only about 50% of those residents.
I'm talking about the people that the parents of people with disabilities. So that 50% place as a top priority. So
Okay.
I was just double checking to make sure that that was not like versus a not a priority option, and rather versus the other options.
No, it means that 50% of them said that this was their priority, and probably an additional percentages said that something else was a different priority for
Yeah,
them
that's
as
what I
well.
figured. Just want to make sure. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
that
you for
lines
that.
up with my understanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Jacob.
Yeah, so one of the clarifying questions is you were talking about the focus groups that you had, the 10 of them, and that people were going to the groups that they best identified, even though they had multiple different identifications. So does their answers for each of those are collected as a whole, and then that's how you get your data, or is it like when they say, hey, I'm identifying as Spanish-speaking parent and children, that data collection group cannot go outside of that, if say they may be also Black and Spanish?
Yeah, so it varies across. So for Spanish-speaking families, that was exclusive group for just Spanish-speaking families. But if a finding came up with if they mentioned LGBTQIA experiences, then that was something that we would share across and share outside of that. Or, for instance, if we're in the unhoused population and they're mentioning something that's very specific to them, or a youth in foster care, but they're not in that foster care group, we still elevate it based off of their identity that they're sharing and contextualizing that comment within. So, yeah.
Looks like we have some questions in the Zoom.
Alejandra?
So we have here on a slide, that was a finding that came up when we're asking about programs to help youth ages 14 to 24 prepare and plan for college. And respondents that was earning an income of 75 to 100K were significantly more likely than other earning categories to place this as a priority. We did not, so this is the thing, survey is not the most perfect tool for collecting information and sometimes not for contextualizing that information. So unless we're in communities and we're specifically asking about that, it's sort of hard for us to really deduce what that could mean. So we'll have to do our own interpretation around that. But we don't have here understanding of why was this as something that's very important to them and not listed as high for those other categories. But we can lift up what were the percentages for those other categories. But when we say something is significant, that is statistically significant. So that means that for those who love stats, that there's a p-value that's less than 0.05. So there's a significant difference in those two groups, and that's where we try to really call that attention when those are significant differences lie there.
Can I sparkle on that, Dr. Woodson? We do know through the caucus focus groups that our strategic assumption that we could make is that for this income bracket, they are not as challenged by resourcing basic needs as those with lower incomes. So throughout the focus groups, we heard as a key finding and theme that the most important thing that folks need right now are basic needs: deeply affordable housing, access to fresh, nutritious foods, community spaces where they can gather and engage in mutual aid, and places for their youth to go after school that keeps them in a safe environment and allows them to engage in leadership development and workforce development training. So aside from getting your basic needs, there's not much time to think about what's beyond that. So our strategic assumption based on the focus groups is that, and what we do know by data offered by the Office of Violence Prevention, is that younger children, meaning in middle school and younger, are now engaging in gangs and are being directly or indirectly impacted by community violence. So we're just seeing an uptick in the age spectrum. We know that is true for older youth. We are becoming aware that it is now becoming true for our younger youth.
And if I could just offer, that was not surprising. It is on. Does it need to be closer to my face? Okay. From a domestic violence perspective, it was not surprising to me because prevalence rates in domestic violence are much higher in families who have children 0 to 5. It is where the highest level of severity and the largest prevalence of domestic violence relationships are kind of centered. So I would imagine that lots of folks are experiencing familial violence as well as community level violence, which might be driving some of that difference.
Yes, and from my own knowledge, middle school is also a flashpoint for that sort of thing. That makes sense from the data as well as personal experience with both at the middle school I went to, Robert Gray, which is actually reprimanded for rampant racism and ableism in the school, as well as, of course, my mother had a violent partner. So that seemed to line up with current understanding of that. So,
Thank you. Let's go to Jamie, and then we're going to continue the presentation.
Was there a distinction between what kind of, the differences of violence, of domestic violence versus peer-to-peer violence, or is it all kind of lumped together?
For the survey, it was lumped together for that one.
In focus groups, we did hear from particular, the caucused houselessness focus groups, that it was concentrated around domestic violence. If I think back to the caucus focus group for youth, that did not come up for them. We'll talk about mental health, but that was a byproduct of that.
Hey, how we doing? We're halfway there, guys. So I'm going to share some time, and with our next set of time, walk through the next 3 program areas, and then we'll pause again for additional Q&A. The next section touches on foster care. So having conversations with individuals who are either youth who are currently or formerly in foster care, as well as parents who are engaged with the foster care system as well. So for our survey, we wanted to hear from community members and service providers about what are some programs that they need more of in their community. So this is going back to not a ranking, but understanding what is it that we need more of or less of in our community. Some of those programs that we wanted to ask about were to help foster youth and families to understand their racial and cultural identity, especially when the foster parents and the youth are from different races and cultural backgrounds. We wanted to see if there was a need for more programs to support birth families who are getting connected to their children who are in foster care, as well as supporting foster care youth who are experiencing disabilities, and supporting foster care youth having a comfortable environment that they could call home who also identify as LGBTQIA foster youth. In looking across community members and providers, this was one of the areas where we saw the most responses for I do not know. And as you see in the gray bars, those bars kind of grew across the different programming areas where the largest percentage was about a quarter of the population almost, saying that they were not sure if we needed more programs to help foster families learn to take care of LGBTQIA youth. We noticed some of the top programs where people said we need more of was for supporting our older foster youth, and those with disabilities to transition out of care and transition whether that's into workforce or career force from there. Also, we noticed that some of the top rating programs or the programs where they needed the most programs was around helping foster youth and their families understand their racial and cultural identity, especially if they have different ones that are shared with their family members. So in just thinking about that first programming area there, with helping families and understanding if there's a need for more programs to help families and youth understand their racial and cultural identity, we noticed that 92% of foster care families and 80% of foster care youth indicated that their communities needed a lot more programs in this area. And about 86% of LGBTQIA youth indicated that this was a program area where they needed more support in. We also see across some racial and ethnic backgrounds that Black, Middle Eastern, Northern African, as well as Hispanic and Latinx respondents indicated that they needed a lot more programs and compared to white and Asian respondents as well.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Clarifying question. The I don't know, is that because they don't have a personal affiliation, or is it because they're unaware of what yes, and?
A combination of both. And what we noticed in an earlier slide, when it showed us those priority populations, we saw it was a very small bar for foster. But what we didn't show you in this data set, because there was a lot to show, is that we asked providers, how many of you work with populations that identify as foster youth? How many of you work in that space? And I believe the percentages was less than half of the providers worked in there. So that's probably lending to that knowledge gap that's there. And we asked people that if you don't know what you need in that area, don't just select anything. So we wanted to get as honest feedback as we could from those respondents. When it comes to Jacob, yes.
So, not to throw a wrench into it, but so do you feel that like a lot of this data would be reliable, as considering that majority or a lot of them don't really have a connection or affiliation with anyone from a foster care?
Yeah.
Kind of giving answers from their own feelings?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's why we crossed this data with our focus group that we did, specifically with focus group foster care youth and their families, as well as conversations that we had with direct service providers that work in that space as well. So we're going to triangulate all of the data together to form that picture for you. But that is a great question, because when you do have a small population that identify with this, it does kind of skew the survey results that you're seeing here in some ways.
Fine as well. Yeah. I was assuming based on the earlier questions that these are questions that most people would say yes to. And they were designed that way. Is that
Yes or no? You mean?
These was questions where they had to say, do we need more? Do we need a little bit more? Do we need
Maybe
less?
They've written in a way that, since this presentation has begun with all of these categories like this, it seems like most people would say yes to these questions. Were they designed to be like that?
It was designed to understand to what degree do we need more. So that's was kind of like that, do we need more or less scale. This section was not designed for them to rank them or prioritize them.
Okay. And there was no comments that allowed them to say what they would like to see.
There were comments, yeah, that we embed as quotes.
Okay. And then what I thought I heard in that exchange was you can distinguish between those that have knowledge about foster care
Yeah.
and those that don't. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
And we call that out, and when we tease apart the community findings, we wanted to see what are foster care parents and families saying. And then we also wanted to see what is the people in general, public, are saying about them too. So for instance, when it comes to supporting foster youth, including those with disabilities to find housing, employment, and to enter college and to live on their own, we saw that 88% of foster care parents, 91% of those who identify as families that was caring for someone with a disability, as well as 100% of foster care youth that were in our sample, emphasized that this was an area where they needed more support. So we call attention to those where they're not only where they were significantly different, but also where they recognized that this was a high priority need for them is how we called attention to those in this space. We also acknowledged that when it came to supporting foster families who was caring for individuals with disabilities to find safe and fun activities for their youth, we noticed that, again, 92% of those parents and caregivers, as well as 93% of those families who are caring for someone with a disability, and 100% of those foster youth indicated that this was a need for them as well. We also
That brought up another clarifying question. So when you mentioned that they wanted to know about the next steps for after they're 18.
Yes.
I don't see that. Is that question here, and I just don't see it?
That is transitioning out of foster care. It's the first one. It's the 78% bar. Support older foster youth, including those with disabilities, with transitioning out of foster care.
Or that. Okay.
Yes. It's easy to skip over. Yeah, it's a lot of those words. So just here, recognizing that support programs to help foster families learn how to care for, support, and build a comfortable home environment for LGBTQIA identified foster youth. About 84% of LGBTQIA families, as well as 80% of families that was caring for someone who identified as having a disability, and 75% of those parents or caregivers and 90% of foster youth indicated that this was an area where they needed more programs and support. When we had those conversations in space with communities around what are some of the needs around foster care, we noticed that children and youth in foster care experience a regulated environment with very limited resources, and often, it's a challenge with transitioning to adulthood. And that helped us contextualize what we were seeing as one of the things that stood out as the top of that survey.
May I provide some information actually on that?
Is it a clarifying question?
No, then, all right.
Keep it for Q&A.
Okay. Thank you. We'll come back to you. And we noticed that foster parents, they feel like they're not adequately supported in the communities. They realize that they are sometimes connected with caseworkers who are overworked, overloaded, that they sometimes receive a delay in their services. They notice that there's a diminished or limitations to the amount of services that are provided for after the youth is 18. And there's not enough academic support or tutoring support to really be successful in school. And so they're really urging for more support in those areas. And again, the theme around mental health really comes up in this area as well, and getting access to mental health therapists and people that could really support them as they're navigating not only the transition, but also while they're in foster care as well. And we noticed that some key recommendations stood out. And in the full deck, there will be a lot more quotes and contextualization of these findings as well. But some of the things that stood out when we look about, or when we think about youth, while they are transitioning out of care, they want more support. They need more support with helping them to navigate those types of conversations and those type of life events. But while they are in the system, they also need additional support. And oftentimes, these are individuals who we learned that are still having a connection with their biological families, and they recognizing that they still want to help their biological parents with accessing resources. They realize that they would like to see them connected to different supportive services, whether that's mental health, other forms of health care, or basic financial needs as well. And then they also mention the need for additional services such as harm reduction resources for them as well as for their biological parents as well. And that could be like providing them with Narcan and having those type of assistance for them as well. They also would like for some system navigators and advocates for helping them with maneuvering through the system and getting the types of services and supports, because oftentimes they feel like they are not aware of the abundance of resources that could be available to them that they're just not able to access, and they want more support and being able to navigate that given the level of insurance that they may have as well. They need some more support with that. Mm-hmm.
I just want to sparkle on Dr. Woodson's key findings here. These are inextricably linked findings. So advocating and seeking resources for biological parents is linked to transitioning out of the system in some instances. And youth were very intentional about mentioning that because that is an outcome that they're seeking, right? And relatedly, having a system navigator to help them source the resources that they need to then help their parents, that then would help their parents transition out of whatever disorder, substance use disorder, or challenge that they're experiencing would then aid in the trajectory of them getting out of the system. So I just want to make sure we're connecting those findings. Even though that they are separate, they are linked.
Thank you for that, Camille. And we also noticed that while they're in there, some common themes that we heard that that also translates over to here is that they wanted more peer support and mentorship, especially those who are older foster care youth, those that they can have one-on-one mentorship or even group mentorship with. Sometimes they express, feeling alone and not knowing other people that are in a similar situation with them and experiencing similar things. And so that could bring about feelings of isolation, and they wanted someone with lived experience to help support them in that, as well as individuals who reflect their cultural, racial, and ethnic identity as well, which was something common that we saw throughout. And they also want to get connected to some resources that will help them with being reunited back with their family. Some had a very, very strong link to their family members, and large part of their discussions was can I support not only myself, but how can I support my family? That was really important and top of mind for them. And again, we hear when it comes to children who are experiencing disabilities, those families are indicating that it was a lack of resources and being connected to services that could possibly support their youth as well. When it comes to hunger relief, we wanted to understand and have individuals rate what are their top 3 programs in this area. We wanted to call attention and distinguish between not only having food pantries, but the location of those food pantries, whether they're at school or at community-based organizations that they often frequent. We also know that they want more nutrition support in terms of cooking and gardening and education around that, as well as is it important for them to have access to land to grow foods as well. And also, how important is it to have food that is grown and sold by people of the same cultural identity as you as well. We noticed some differences in responses when you look across the community members as well as providers. Again, providers are in the blue, community members are in the orange, and you can see their bars are going in ascending order for the community members. So some of the top areas for community members was accessing food pantries at community serving organizations and access to food and groceries that are delivered or cooked meals that are delivered to their home was really important for community members. And their third choice was to teach nutrition, cooking, and gardening courses as well. Providers seem to agree that accessing, free groceries and cooked meals delivered to their home is also important, as well as access to community-based organizations that provide pantries. But providers also saw that maybe access to food that was grown and sold by people of their same cultural identity would be something that the community found useful as well, whereas community rated that their second to lowest priority area when they had to rank it against the others. When it comes to accessing free groceries and cooked meals delivered to their homes, we noticed that Black as well as American Indian and Alaskan Native respondents were significantly more likely than any other racial or ethnic group to indicate that having access to these programs was a priority for them. We also noticed that in this area, that immigrant and refugee respondents indicated this was a priority area less often than other respondents as well. When it comes to accessing food at schools, we noticed that Black and American Indian respondents were less likely than other respondents to indicate that their families need food pantries in their schools as well. In terms of accessing food pantries at community-based organizations, we noticed that low-income respondents and respondents with children between the ages of 19 and 24, as well as single-parent caregivers, they all mentioned that this was a priority area more often than other respondents. And teaching children and families about nutrition and cooking and gardening, we noticed that this amongst individuals who preferred language of Vietnamese, as well as individuals who identify as Middle Eastern and Northern African, were significantly less likely than other respondents to indicate that this was a priority for their children to learn to nutrition and cooking and gardening. Maybe that was something that they're already doing within their communities and families. When it comes to access to land to grow food, we noticed that respondents with an annual household income of less than $75K were significantly more likely than respondents from higher earning households to indicate that this was a priority area for them. So some of those lower income families really thought that this was important, especially around the $75K and lower cutoff. When it comes to accessing food that are grown and sold by people with the same cultural identity as the family, we noticed that, while we saw on the other slide that this was one of the lowest rating when they had to rate this against other programs, that this was also still a priority area, especially for those who, this was the lowest rating priority area for them. Only 36% of the community members offered this as something that they wanted to see. But foster care respondents, immigrant and refugee respondents, as well as LGBTQIA respondents, listed this as a priority significantly more often than the other groups. So even though we saw it was low ratings, that this was still something important for some subgroups that exist there. So this kind of brings us to our earlier point when we talked about that people need support with their basic needs and that there's a lot that people need. And they talked about in large part of our conversations how food subsidies, it will cover the food, but what about those other basic needs that we have? Some women talked about menstrual care products and other things that they need as household items to help them with their basic needs to help support their family. Some also mentioned that, affordable housing is not really affordable and that we need support for the true low-income families and people in our community. And they also talked about how access to affordable transportation is really important and that having to get to multiple places using the bus is not the most ideal thing for them and that they have a lot of responsibilities and they need reliable transportation to be able to do those types of things. Caregivers also talked about system navigators as someone who works within or even adjacent to the healthcare and social systems to help them to be able to navigate and access reliable and accessible information for them and their families. They wanted to have and be able to build trust with these individuals so that they can help them with navigating some of the harms that some have previously experienced when they're trying to navigating system resources as well. And this was especially important for those who had family members who identify as being disabled as well. So some clear recommendations that came forth from looking at this section about hunger relief is that they wanted access to food relief programs. They wanted it to be accessible in their community-based organizations, but they did not want to just receive a random box of food. They wanted to be able to identify the foods that they need, the foods that they're going to actually use to help them cook. And they also wanted some more support and awareness about things that they could embed in their diet, but they don't want to just be handed off something and say, here, this is for you. They also wanted to have, some access to and awareness of different financial resources to help them beyond the cost. The cost of food is high, but also other basic needs are especially expensive as well. And they need support for that as well to help them. And those are the 3 recommendations that come forth in the hunger relief section. And our final programming area is around child abuse prevention and intervention. And we asked survey respondents to tell us, to what degree do you need more programs in your community to help families who may be experiencing high levels of stress and trauma? And so those programs around supporting youth with handling stress, as well as supporting families with getting connected to resources like utility payment, housing assistance, as well as programs to connect families with each other and to reduce isolation, and for families who may be experiencing grief and loss to help them with, or even violence, to garner some healing circles as well as some coping skills as well. When looking across community as well as providers, some of the things that stood out is that all of these programs were, when they said to what degree do you need this, 80% or more said that we need more programs like this in our area. Some of the things that stood out as top of the list, but just by a small margin, is that we need more programs to help support youth learn skills to handle stress, as well as connecting families to resources like food, utility payments, and their basic needs. Lower on the list, but still not significant, is that they wanted to have more programs and support to connect parents and caregivers with each other and to reduce feelings of isolation. So when it comes to programs to help children and youth learn skills to handle stress, we noticed that Black, Middle Eastern, Northern African, Asian, and Hispanic and Latinx respondents were significantly more likely than white and Native Hawaiian respondents to indicate that they wanted more programs in their community to support them when handling stress. We also noticed that when it comes to programs that connect families to resources like food and utility payments and housing assistance, that having more supportive programs that provide these basic needs was very important and considered a major need, especially for single-parent respondents, especially for those who were respondents that ever gone without food, and individuals who identify as being houseless, and individuals who cared for someone with a disability and or with someone who was immigrant or refugee. They really wanted to see more supportive programs for them and helping them navigate that. We also noticed that for programs that support the healing of youth who have been impacted by violence, whether that's in their home, such as domestic violence, or even violence in their community, such as gang violence, we noticed that Middle Eastern and American Indian, as well as Black and Asian respondents, are significantly more likely than white respondents to indicate that their communities need a lot more of these supportive programs. And this was an important program area for respondents with children between the ages of 19 and 24. We saw that about 93% of those families and 100% of foster care youth indicated that, as well as those that were without food and those who experienced times without experienced houselessness, and as well as single-parent households. Those are all key categories of people who wanted to get connected and provide more resources to help them with dealing with harm and trauma that they experience. And another area where we ask about programs that support you, parents and caregivers with getting connected to each other and reducing isolation, we noticed that Black and Hispanic as well as Asian respondents were significantly more likely than other categories, especially white respondents, to indicate that they needed more programs to help reduce isolation for them in their communities as well. Some of the community conversations that we had also helped us amplify what was the needs of these individuals in this area. And we noticed that having focus groups with caregivers, they really talked about experiencing loneliness. And this was something, even after the pandemic, people are still feeling disconnected from each other in a lot of different ways. And they want to be in community with others that are experiencing similar things. And they talked about having group sessions together at different community events. People really talked about the power of being in space with the focus group, and how they were like, we want more of these. We want more opportunities to talk and see each other and have these conversations. But also what came out from those conversations is that they recognize that being in connection with one another helps strengthen their mental health, and it helped them to be able to learn and share resources. And a lot of sharing of resources happened in those focus group conversations, especially virtual ones, where they could share a lot of information via the chat of different things that they knew about. We also noticed that, going back to the survey, that when we ask about families who are experiencing grief and stress, to help them learn additional coping skills, we noticed that also amongst Black, Asian, Middle Eastern respondents, they were significantly more likely than other respondents to indicate that they needed programs. I think this was a duplicate. Sorry about that. So just another key insights that we're getting from the conversation is that when we had those conversations in communities with BIPOC youth, we noticed that they talked about the need to access mental health resources, and that they are starting to have some conversations in their high school about it. Very few. Some mention only having about one unit, but being intrigued by the idea and wanting to get connected to services, because they're recognizing that whether that's through social media where they're seeing this information or other resources, that they are understanding that there is something in the power of being connected and in community with therapy, that you could learn more about yourself and help you navigate those types of transition that you're going through. Oftentimes, we realized that they wanted people who look like them as therapists. They wanted somebody that could relate to them across a lot of different areas and also keep their information confidential. And this not toting the line of being a mandated reporter. We were able to have conversations where people talked about, yes, the social work provider, she wanted to send me a reminder that I had an appointment with her, but she left the message on my parents' voicemail, and my parents did not know that I was seeking this service. And so now it created a little bit disruption within their household. And so they wanted to be able to get connected to resources and making sure that they're keeping that connection confidential, as long as it's not causing harm to themselves or to others that are around them. We also noticed that the term mental health does not really translate well across different social identities, especially those who are from families that identify as immigrant and refugee families, as well as families where English is a second language. And a lot of times the youth call about how trying to have those conversations with their Asian parents where they're like, I don't really understand what's wrong with you. Nothing is inherently wrong. You're just sad. You don't need therapy. What exactly is that? That doesn't exist. Mental health doesn't exist. And so they're trying to navigate those conversations while also dealing with the issues that they're harboring inside and trying to resolve as well. So trying to get them connected to mental health services in a way in which they can feel seen and heard, and also keep those relationships close to them, is really important for them as well. And as one youth state, mental health is still a taboo subject. During freshman year, when COVID-19 hit, I talked to my mom about getting a therapist just to help me out during a difficult time. Every time she'll say, why do you need a therapist? You're a teenager. You're just sad. Why do I need to pay for a therapist? I also told my dad about mental health, and he said, that's not real. So having to navigate those type of family dynamics, especially when you're in situations where you're experiencing a lot of grief, you're experiencing a lot of trauma, and you need those outlets, is really important. So we wanted to amplify that in our recommendations and acknowledge that having a confidant and someone to go to as a social worker or as a mental health therapist in your community is really important. Making sure that even those resources could be available for youth, but also for family and relatives, especially for those who are in foster care as well. We saw that highlight come through before. And we also noticed that, children and families, they want programs that will provide their families with access to a lot of different resources, especially those resources that could be available outside of the 9 to 5 window and available on weekends as well. Is something that they needed more support with. We noticed that sheltering services are probably outside the scope of PCL, but just adjacent services to that the shelter provides, such as counseling, assistance with getting connected to other resources that they provide there, is something that they wanted to see sponsored by other organizations within their community that could provide that at times where resources probably close down at 5 o'clock on a Friday and they still need support. And of course, this is a major thing. We need more access to people who identify as us, who understand us, and who could come in and not silence us in our identities and help us amplify and affirm who we are in different ways. And this is for people who are speaking different languages, not just English and Spanish, but those that also come from immigrant and refugee families as well. Thank you all.
All right, another dense, heavy section underway. We have some questions and comments. And is it Dion? Is that how you, Dion? I want to circle back to you so that you could share your comment about foster care. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, if it comes back to you, let's circle back. Questions, clarifying questions, comments? Yes, Jacob.
Clarifying question for page 51, the situation with bio parents. Could you explain a little bit more about the wanting for services for the foster kids for their biological parent? Is that a situation where maybe they've been removed? I'm just
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to contextualize. So in our foster care caucus focus group, there were many youth that signaled that they know that their parents, the reason why they are in foster care is because their parents suffer from substance use disorders. And so their thought was, in order for me to actually get out of this system and get back with my parents, whom I talk to every day, who I am giving resources to, I'm giving the money that I have to my mother so that she's not out on the streets, I would love resources or a system navigator to help me determine how do I get substance use disorder resources for my mother so that she can get better and that she can stabilize her life, secure housing, and maybe we can be reunited, and maybe I can get my siblings back too. So this is another pattern of adultification that's happening for foster care youth that we need to be very intentional about in terms of how do we provide resources. And system navigators is terminology that was introduced to us by focus group participants, which I think is brilliant, as a resource that they can utilize that helps them move through the system in a way that creates the outcome that they're seeking, which is to be out of the system and stay out of the system and transition smoothly back into the care of their parents. Yeah.
So my next question is, so there is a general lack of care providers when it comes to mental health that are people of color.
Yep.
Is when you brought up a really important thing called a confidant. Do we feel that like that is something that can be trained, where like maybe because we're a little bit back, we're talking about mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that could be an option for like mentors to get trained to become confidants, or do we feel that like it's only dictated to mental health therapy? And I don't know if that's really a question for you, but
Yeah, that's helpful. Do you want to have?
And there's programs now, especially through OHA, where they're training community members on the science of suicide prevention and intervention. So, and this is someone from the barber that you go to, the coach that you play with, to be able to identify, intervene, and recognize those signs. But when it comes to a confidant, it could be someone that is that late individual that you see, where you could just have those conversations with. But that person could be alerted, like, okay, this is probably trouble area. Let me elevate that, and they could know where to elevate that. But they want someone that they could just go to that does not always have to be, because we know there's a limit, an amount of mental health providers of color across the state, but they want someone that they could go to, and mentors could be trained in that as well. Yes.
Yes, Lene. Is it Lene? Okay.
I just want to add that there's a lack of multicultural providers across the board, not just mental health, right? On page 54, I was wondering if maybe there was some additional context. I guess I was inferring why the access to food pantries at school was scored similarly between the two. I just wonder if there's such stigma, right, around food insecurity, and maybe teachers, providers, and students and families are scoring it that low because they know that maybe people won't access it if it's visible. I know growing up, they would like have options outside of where other kids can see, you know what I mean, to say, oh, but the kid doesn't want to walk out with the bag. They're the only one with the bag. So one, I was just wondering if that came up for that. And then the other two, where is it? Access to food grown and sold by people of the same culture as the family was scored 36% for community. And I wonder, for the last bar graph where it says access to food pantries at community serving organizations, like I wonder if anybody thought whether or not those community serving organizations are culturally specific, right? And so I wondered if the community thought of it that way, and maybe they scored so high on the latter because they're not viewing it that way in both categories. I don't know. Do you have any other insight on those two results?
If I'm tracking correctly, when they mentioned the community organizations, the language in there, that organizations that serve you. So they were really looking at it through the lens of a community, culturally responsive organization that reflects their identity. But compared to when you look at all of those programs, accessing to land was something that came up not as frequently as that. You know, maybe it's because of time, ability to be able to do those things, whereas they could see like having resources that are immediately available for them is something that people need when they're in their busy lives and what they're managing. In terms of access to food pantries at school, we did see some quotes where parents and families recognize that for a large part, children get most of their meals while they're at school. And so, but it's also that stigma with like the kid that goes home with a bag of food at the end of the day. And so, whereas there's less of a stigma and recognition of you going to a community service organization, that's where you could get stuff from, and that was more welcoming than having the kid have to go home with that. So, yes. Yeah.
Tracy?
I just wanted to piggyback on Lenny's question around that just a little bit. So on page 55, when it says that the Black and American Indian populations were more likely than other groups to having access to free groceries, is that aspirational? Is it something that those groups wanted, or is it something that they were already getting? I couldn't quite tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sister.
Yeah, they indicated that they wanted a lot more programs in their community.
Mhm.
In conversations that we were having with people in terms of if they are already getting those services, it felt like it wasn't enough.
Okay.
And there wasn't a diversity of options.
Yes.
So it's really about having a lot of different options for those particular services and everybody not gravitating or being forced to utilize the same options, which then increases the likelihood that folks won't get the type of groceries that they need because there's such a high demand.
Okay, that helps.
Can I give a little context? So just a little context. So in Oregon, or specifically in Portland, a lot of schools, they already get pretty much majority of their food pantry stuff through like the Oregon Food Bank. A lot of it is they try to source as much as they can from local, but especially when it comes to local, it's not really a lot of different varieties, especially considering that our growing season is coming shorter and shorter and shorter. So it's super important to also realize that like when they're talking about like getting access, it's consistent access. And I think that's also another thing that our organizations have been seeing is a lot of kids and individuals are not getting consistent access to specific things that represent themselves.
So technically, we're at time. Erica, do you want us to talk about community vision really quickly, or would you like to wrap up? Okay. All right. I will run through these slides. Perception of PCL. So what do people know about PCL? We were curious about brand awareness and brand affinity. So those who do direct service provider work knew about PCL more than those who are doing at least a little bit of systems level work or are adjacent. And folks both do in the direct service provider space as well as community members thought that the community council stood out as an essential part of the process for ensuring that community has a voice. So thank you all for your service. Some additional advice. So we also asked folks, both in mainly in the focus groups, what additional advice do you have for PCL? A lot of them are around building stronger relationships with a lot of the community-based organizations or the ecosystem that is serving them directly, so that there's greater leveraging of resources and tools that can support children and families. Climate resiliency came up as a key priority that we didn't ask about, which I thought was super interesting. Folks are really, especially for future generations when thinking about their children, in climate-related events, disaster-related events, they're looking for resiliency strategies that could be, created by the Portland Children's Levy or leveraging partnerships with organizations that do that work. A recommendation to act both upstream and downstream from a public health standpoint. Consider creative ways to show kids we care about them. What are the ways that we can incentivize kids showing up to after-school programs or tutoring programs by signaling that the feedback that we've gotten from them is the way in which we are designing programs. Ensuring that community council reflects the community and compensating them for their time and their labor. Being a part of collaborative conversations happening at the systems level about the future of children and families in Portland, and really making it crystal clear how community members can get involved. Folks were really interested in PCL. They had not heard of PCL before, and they're like, well, what can I do to make sure that I can help contribute to the design of future programs or help advocate for organizations that are at the micro level that are best positioned to transition to that small business level that is worthy of a grant from PCL. And consider more collaborative efforts that benefit multiple organizations that are working harmoniously for the benefit of children and families. Next slide. These are just some quotes. I'll just read one. Does the Children's Levy fund new organizations and programs or the usual suspects? Some of them aren't making an impact in the community like they should be, and folks are really wanting to see some new folks funded in this next cycle. Next slide. 5-year vision. We asked, what change would you like to see in community after the next 5 years of the levy? Folks said a declining poverty rate for families and children, a next generation of Portlanders with more skills and tools to thrive academically, behaviorally, and emotionally, more spaces where children and youth feel a sense of belonging, so those community hubs or resilience centers, more awareness and training for adults in children's lives, so workforce development, more engagement of communities to solve problems collectively, so more community engagement, more funding, flexibility, and imagination to design programs that really are innovative and meet the needs of community and children, and sustainability just beyond the next 5 years. Folks are thinking light years ahead and wanting to see a change that will impact their lives and future generations. What does it look like for the next generation of Portlanders to have more skills and tools to thrive? One community member said, being able to stabilize the home and help families with their traumas and structures, bills and food, being able to give these youth tools to survive and know that it's okay to seek mental health. I think it would change things tremendously. Thank you all so, so much. It's been a pleasure, and we're very proud of this work, and we hope you are all too. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Woodson and Camille, for being here today and taking us through that presentation. We know it was a lot, so I just want everybody to take a deep breath and know that we are here, we as a staff are here to support you through what you're going to do with it over the next couple months. So at the end of this month, the Community Council is meeting for an entire afternoon to take this information and we will help you craft it into recommendations for the types of funding priorities for each of the levy's 6 program areas. From there, we as a staff will bring it to the Allocation Committee at the end of June for their additional input and final approval. Those funding priorities will then be incorporated into the funding application when we start our grant making round this fall. So I just want to sort of check understanding in the room, and I'm looking at the screen to see our virtual participants, try to understand next steps.
I look forward to conversations following this on how we can actually still get some authentic dialogue amongst the 2 groups. We didn't have time for that today. You all did a great job. We had technical challenges at the beginning, and we just didn't have a chance to do much dialogue at all. Yeah, so let's just know that that's what happened, and it would be great if we could figure out a way to maybe have that be a little more fluid between the 2 groups. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. I also want to give 2 short sort of logistical updates on the funding process. The first is the application template. For the Allocation Committee members in the room, just a reminder that the Community Council has been working with staff since last fall to shape the template for the application questions and the scoring criteria. When they last met in February, they had given us a bunch of terrific feedback that we've been integrating into that draft application and scoring criteria. Meanwhile, we sent that draft out to over 300 people at over 160 organizations who are potential applicants, so that they could look at it all and weigh in on a short sort of satisfaction survey with also an opportunity for open-ended comments. It was open for 2 months. About 50 people weighed in, and in general, they understand the application questions as currently drafted. They felt they were reasonable. They raised more questions and sort of more feedback around the specific types of questions asked about types of program activities that an applicant would propose, and they raised more questions around those scoring criteria. So that's where we as a staff have spent energy over the last month really tweaking and fine-tuning the application and scoring criteria. So the good news is, in general, potential applicants have seen it, they understand the direction it's going, and overall they were satisfied, but we had some more fine-tuning to go based on council's input and applicants' input. The other thing I wanted to bring to everybody's attention is that as part of being in the city of Portland and working alongside our peer bureaus, the city has an online grant application portal that it's been using called Web Grants. We have never used it before, but we as a staff are working hard to build a part of our application into that platform. The part that we're building in there is focused on data that can be easily entered by an applicant in an online form. So things like numbers and checkboxes. And we are designing a separate piece that is narrative focused, where applicants will have a lot of opportunity to talk about the nuances or a specific context to their programs. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that we will join the 21st century to some chagrin or to others' elation, and we'll be in touch on that next step too. That was a lot. Go ahead, Linnea.
Just to clarify, is there a two-part process? Like, is there going to be a paper application, or everything is going to be digital?
It'll be digital in that the paper needs to go into that digital platform. That digital platform has questions that people will answer online in the platform itself, and then they'll upload other documents as part of their full application. If someone asks for an accommodation because that platform doesn't work for them, we are prepared to handle, we are making an application, a paper version of the application, and we will handle it in paper for those folks too.
That was my next question, just to make sure it's accessible and not a barrier for anybody.
Thank you. I want to just open up for any other quick questions. I know that was a lot. I think we're at time.
I have another one really quick. Is this exclusive to this group? Oh, great. Just want to make sure we can uplift any appropriate information in other capacities.
You know, our website, they're going to do a full report. I guess I just wanted to say that one. We're not going to say it.
Yeah, our belief is that in reciprocity to community, they are owed these data findings. So we have encouraged PCL to share it with everybody that we've engaged with. We've shared contact information for those that clicked, yes, I want to know more or learn about the findings. So
I just want to say I'm comfortable with dialogue continuing. It is at time boundary, and I know that I have to go because I'm scheduled for something else. I'm sure others might be as well. Thank you so much. Sorry about the technical delay. I look forward to more dialogue after this. I feel like many of you I'm going to be digesting and look forward to actually doing dialogue. And thanks for answering the clarifying questions. Yeah.
thank you, Commissioner Ryan.
Thanks everyone for being here today.
Thanks. It was a wonderful presentation.